Hey everyone, welcome to our show. The Tour Guide welcomes you. I'm your host, The Tour Guide. At any point in time you're consuming this content, I can genuinely only hope you're doing well, and I apologize in advance if I waste your time. So last week we did not have a show, but just to recap what we have been talking about, we've been discussing homelessness, prevention, talking about food additives, food dyes, and chemicals in our food creating adverse reactions in children, resulting in predisposing them to ADHD symptoms, depression, which encourages parents to then put their children on medications, which again predisposes them into adulthood of using controlled substances, recreational drugs. So the connection, the link between habitual drug use and what ultimately can create chemical dependencies or chemical imbalances or just habit forming, and ultimately slowly contributing to why people are addicted to drugs and sometimes tragically results in homelessness. We also talked about the tiny home communities or villages, prototypes, and different types of gardening type of living environments where people are all housed and food is provided through nature. So I want to be kind of continuing on with that subject, going a little bit more detailed about this theme that we're going to be trying to, I guess, decipher. So for our well-balanced weekends discussions, let's talk about your mental health and the need at times to isolate or to separate yourself from certain people, certain groups, certain environments. I've heard the expression, you need to find your tribe. And it's been an unfortunate reality for me these last few years, realizing the importance of this and actually what I can do realistically in my own personal life. But many people have had to, unfortunately, literally move away from certain environments that were unhealthy. Other times people were forcibly removed, separated. And it's not only for your own well-being or health, but also for the other people around in your life. So, like I've discussed in the past, if anyone's followed my Facebook page, I've revealed some mental health issues I've had to deal with, and some of it involving children and having to separate from them. So I won't spend too much time on that, but I was told by someone I cared about that you need to find your own tribe. So with that being in mind, we need to really discuss what that actually looks like. So for a well-balanced weekend, please take that into consideration. Consider what or who you are, what type of personality you possess. If you need to take a personality test, I highly encourage you to do so. With me, I was pretty ignorant for a long time about who I was, my personality traits, my thought processes. Some people, I say this very tentatively, I don't like to use labels so loosely and flippantly. I understand that there's always going to be someone that classifies as autistic or on the spectrum, or someone who has severe mental illness, someone that is clinically unwell, someone that you want to classify as a sociopath or psychopath or schizophrenic. There's always different degrees of mental health, and doctors have done a pretty good job cataloging and categorizing people that fall into these groups. I understand the necessity of these things and why it's appropriate or necessary for societies to have these type of diagnoses and keeping track of these types of symptoms, and why psychiatrists exist, why psychologists exist, and why we have different medications. I'm aware of the benefits of it. The thing is that we have to be very, very careful not to overdiagnose and not to micro assess and try to put everyone on a category, or again to quickly slap on a label and say, oh, you've got this, that, and the other, you've got X, Y, and Z, you are in this category. Like, we need to be very, very cautious about doing that, because let me put the disclaimer. I have to put the disclaimer. I personally am not a doctor. Okay, so I'm not trying to give anyone any medical advice. I'm not trying to diagnose. I'm not trying to treat you. And I'm not trying to counteract what has already been discussed between you and your healthcare or medical profession. The thing I am trying to do, though, is to bring awareness to the potential, again, of misdiagnosing or overdiagnosing without looking at the bigger picture. We've talked in past videos and podcasts about sometimes symptoms are adverse reactions to chemicals which has been introduced to the food. Sometimes it's environmental. Sometimes it's just temporary. You're going through a rough patch. Sometimes it's really the people who are around you that is literally unearthing or bringing out these negative characteristic traits within yourself. Sometimes we're missing out on symptoms of a greater problem. Like the person that you're around you is literally invoking or creating a hostile or unhealthy environment. So I appreciate the support because I don't think a lot of people are really aware of these things. They're just going to the doctor saying I have depression, and then they're giving them a pill and not really able to change or help the individual with their circumstance, whether or not it's the environment that they're living in, or again, chemical imbalances from the food, hormonal imbalances, so many different things. I've read studies about Alzheimer's patients that there is a greater amount of people suffering from Alzheimer's who are living in inner cities, and they've been able to connect the lack of space, the lack of fresh green fields and grass for people to explore and move around in. And in addition to the exhaust, the chemicals from the exhaust, the smog from the environment, they've attributed that to an increase in Alzheimer's patients, people that live in the inner cities versus the people that live out in the country with more fresh air and open spaces to work in. So if you have children who are not exposed outside, fresh air, cooped up, watching negative influences, getting a lot of chemicals in their systems, etc., and they're not addressing these issues, you're not taking into consideration and then just saying, oh, they've got this mood disorder, or they've got this form of depression, or they've got this whatever. I know, I just want to caution people to take a closer look and examine these things, look at the bigger picture of why someone might be experiencing or exhibiting certain characteristics. In addition to that, I think it's also very important that we talk about, I know this is difficult for some people. I've been spending more time with a couple of friends who aren't at all religious, who are pretty much either agnostic or atheist, and most people don't like hearing this discussion. And I've been seeing a lot of this meme or this post going around through different types of friends. I have two different accounts. So one of them, it says, all this time you thought you were battling demons, but you're just battling the consequences of your poor choices. And as much as I do understand what that post is saying, that sometimes the bad things that we're going through or dealing with are the consequences of our poor choices. Sometimes, yes, a simple choice can have negative ramifications. We also cannot ignore how demonic the world is and what demons actually do and how they affect people and their decision making. If you are a Christian and you know what the Bible says and you actively choose to not align yourself with God's law and willingly choose to disobey it and do your own thing, there are going to be consequences. There are people out there who are completely ignorant and do not know what's going on. You have people who are listening to music, watching television shows, imbibing in controlled substances, and have experienced generations of people who have been living sinful, carnal, pagan lifestyles for generations, trying to sit here and simply say, oh, these are just the consequences of poor choices. Sorry. I mean, we cannot disregard accountability, and I realize that there needs to be more personal accountability, but the thing is, though, How can you expect someone to have personal accountability when they are completely unaware of how their actions, or what is the motivating factor of their actions, what is initiated, or what is the propelling reasons why a person chooses or makes decisions that they've made? We need to take into serious account of the rise in narcissism that is in our society with the smartphone and technology addictions, the whole thing called selfies, the whole thing about constantly comparing oneself to another, the increase of cosmetic surgery where young people of all generations, ages, and demographic backgrounds, there's an increase of people getting cosmetic plastic surgery and elective plastic surgery so they can look more like their edited photos that they have generated from their smartphones and filters. Okay, so there's been an increase of narcissism and an increase of selfishness and other types of issues, and it's related to again, I'm going to say a lot of spiritual things that people aren't even aware of. So how can you truly expect someone to take responsibility or deal with the consequences of their poor choices when they're not even aware of any other thought processes? They've never been introduced or talked about or discussed about these things, especially when it comes time for lust and sexual perversion and pornography addiction, controlled substances, abusive behaviors. I appreciate what the post says, and I understand what it means. We also need to be realistic, and this is pretty much the devil's playground. God is aware of our problems, especially for those who seek out to him and plead the blood of Jesus and pray to God. We're also aware, though, that Satan is the ruler. He's allowed to control the earth, the realms of it. When Jesus went into the wilderness and fasted for 40 days, the devil offered him pretty much everything, the kingdom, the keys of the earth's kingdoms. He offered to him if he would submit and bow down to Satan. Satan has dominion and control over the earth. With certain, of course, guidelines. God is ultimately in control, but the thing is, with our modern day music, television shows, influences, the spiritual battle it's pretty hype right now. It's pretty heated. So we need to be praying and being kept up in constant prayer. So when I talk about people who need to find their tribe, you've got people who have genuine, pure hearts, who know nothing but love and compassion and forgiveness, who will have the servant's attitude, a servant's mindset, the person who just wants to take care of the other person, the nurturer, the carer, the provider. And then you've got the people who are just naturally selfish, who just don't care, who is self-preservation, it's survival, it's me against the world, it's me versus you. I'm not gonna take the fall. It's gonna be me versus you, and I'm gonna choose me. You have several people like that who are out to get it for themselves, who are only interested in their best interest, and ultimately, it's not completely black and white. You have some people who are legitimate, I'm just going to say it very blatantly, NPCs, non-playing characters. I have met some people in my life. I have a couple of friends on my friends list who I have observed for the last couple of decades what their life really looks like. And I'm thoroughly convinced there are literally people out there who are just essentially empty vessels, who are people who are just the, as Pink Floyd's song is called, The Wall. There are some people who are just literally just there to exist. You've heard about, I'm sure, I don't know if you have or not, I will bring it up to your attention now. People who literally don't have internal monologues, internal discussions with themselves, who do not think beyond what they are doing currently, and do not have any plans of making any future plans. Their thoughts are on what they're currently consuming, what they're currently doing. They're impulsive. They don't know how to critically think. They don't think about the consequences. They are just there in the moment. They are obsessed with media and trends, and they don't have any deeper ambitions, goals, or objectives in life. So you've got a variety of people out there who are just pretty much on autopilot. There are people who are naturally selfish, and there's others who are naturally giving and loving people. So for our well-balanced weekends, let me remind people out there, for the sake of your mental health, for the sake of your mental well-being, physical, emotional, spiritual, please spend some time getting truly in tune with who you are. Who are you really? And try to get yourself in a position where you are in a healthier, safer environment. Choosing the best food options for you, choosing the best influences, the people around you, the environments around you. And if you cannot change your environment, to really deeply consider learning about mindfulness, more of the spiritual aspect of prayer, and getting closer to God, getting right with God. Because as much as I'd like to sit here and say, people make choices and you gotta deal with the consequences and whatever, we're dealing with some serious spiritual battles right now. That the demons are out there, the angels are out there as well. God is out there, he's moving, he's working through his people as well. There is a spiritual battle out there. It's more than the eye can see and perceive and pick up on. We don't need to be fearful. You don't need to be going looking for it. But please be aware that it's affecting you, whether or not you like it, whether or not you want to try to control it. What you can control is how you respond to things, who you submit to, who you give your time and energy to. And of course, also, I'm big on the preventative health, how you nurture and care for your body, and as well as your emotional, spiritual health as well. So for well-balanced weekends, please take some time, especially this weekend, to really consider who you are and what tribe you want to be associated with. So transitioning from that, let's talk about our business and tech talks discussion. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the 15-minute cities. I am still pretty new to that. I don't know if anyone has seen, well, first, it's a book. It's called The Giver. I personally, honestly, I will admit, I have not read the book yet. I have only seen the movie. So most of my opinion on this discussion is going to be based off of the movie, but I've been told that, of course, the book is better. There's more to it. There's different themes. So for those who are diehard, read the book. I do apologize for misrepresenting this book, The Giver. So, and then also there's M. Night Shyamalan's movie, The Village. If you have not seen The Village, spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about that. So with the whole 15-minute cities, The Giver, the movie, and then The Village, the movie. Let's talk about it right now. Okay, so the 15-minute cities, apparently, in theory, you're going to be surveillance, constant surveillance. This is going to be attributed or attached to the digital credit score system, the cashless society. You're going to have everything within close proximity to what you need. You're only going to be allowed to travel certain times of day, certain distances. This is to preserve the climate, to reduce your carbon footprint, to reduce waste, to keep everything safe, this, that, and the other, X, Y, and Z, to track and monitor your movements, what you spend, and of course, the future will look like there will be more pandemics and outbreaks of different viruses, and we need to keep everyone safe, to document who's traveling where, across the world, or the United States more specifically. There's going to be hazardous environments through all the train derailments and contaminations. So people are going to be forced to move into these cities, as well as possibly to FEMA camps for your safety and protection. You're going to have the natural disasters, and again, different chemicals and hazards where people, again, this is kind of theory. I'm going to say it's theory, but you can do some more research and see what they say about the 15-minute cities. So expect that in the future. But the reason why I bring up the movie The Giver, this is a future type environment where they've created these sanctuary communities where everyone has an assigned job. They have a household with a mother-father type figure structure. Education has already been selected for you. Your future career has been selected for you. Everyone there is equal. Everyone is neutral. There is no violence. There's no crime. There's also no music. There's also no dancing. Everyone is just kind of content. So again, this is based off of the movie. I know that the book has more. There's one character who is called the Giver. He's a person that holds, or he or she is an individual that holds all of the memories, the history from the civilization prior to these different communes where it's completely safe and neutral, and no one has any type of anger, no one has any type of strong emotion or feelings. Everything's taken care of, and it's just supposed to be like a utopian type environment. So the Giver, he gives all of his information to a receiver. One person is chosen every certain amount of time to receive all of the information, all the history about the music. He pretty much is a walking historian, a walking museum who keeps track of all of these things. And in the movie, in the book, the receiver realizes that essentially the people who are in these communities are, how do I put it? I guess asleep. They're not awake to the reality. They're limited in their ability to love and experience emotions, and so you should check it out. I won't give you any more spoilers on that one, but I like to bring up that movie in particular because in a way I do agree with the idea of creating an environment where we can eradicate the violence and have an environment where people are just focused on everyone has a job, everyone has a role, everyone has a home, everyone has the maternal, paternal environment or foundation. How do we get people to all agree on that? How do you eradicate violence, any type of emotions? Well, in the film, I'm assuming is also in the book, they do these daily injections that they receive, and they're supposed to do it for your health. The Giver claims that that is what keeps you doled out from your emotions. And another theory is that's kind of what some people have speculated that the most recent line of jabs kind of created. More of, how do I put it? A dulling down of your emotions where you're not as empathetic or loving. It's more, again, the self-preservation. People are so focused on their health and not getting sick and not like, I don't want your germs, and isolating themselves, that it perpetuated more of that feeling of numbness and closed off. And some of your nerves have made the individual a little bit more dulled or numbed to the plight or the emotions of people around you. So that's just a theory about the potential risks or downsides of the jab. Whether it's actually physical or just psychological, that's up for debate. But the point that we want to make is, how do we get to a point where society agrees that we want to live a happy, peaceful life, but we don't want it to be forced? Finding the balance between people who willingly want or choosingly want a happy existence to cohabitate with people in a copacetic environment without being threatened, without being forced into things, without being constantly surveyed. Some cultures, some countries, such as Japan, they have stores that, they don't have anyone running the stores. People can just go in there, pick up the item, pay, and they don't have to worry about theft. We also have to realize, though, certain civilizations also have higher suicide rates, and the expectation of perfectionism and high performance and not allowing your emotions to be expressed has opposite effects as well too, and negative effects on people, especially I believe it's South Korea also has a high suicide rate. The family unit isn't very strong. The reproduction, or the the producing of the next generation, like people aren't having children, so the replenishment rate is very, very low. There's lots of pros. We see the benefits of people who respect society and the rules and the expectations, but then we also see the other side where it's completely calloused and closed off, and there's not enough of the love and emotions and the closeness and the connectivity. So these are the things we have to kind of discuss the balance between being forced into submission and order versus people doing it for their own free will, their own free choice. Being allowed to travel wherever you want without being watched and monitored, or without having someone say you can't spend this, or you're damaging the environment because you've driven too much, or you've spent too much, or you've consumed too much. There needs to be a delicate balance. And I remember The Village. I'm going to spoil this for you. So it's a community that lives somewhere out in the forest, and you think you're living in a different time era. It turns out you're living in modern era, but the people there, the elders of this community, they've intentionally kept the people there in this village ignorant to the outside world. They wanted to create a completely safe environment, free from the problems out there in the real world, the murders, the thefts, the attacks. They wanted to create themselves a safe environment tucked away in the forest. And someone gets injured, they send someone to go get help and supplies. The person who goes is this young blind woman, so she can't really see what's going on. She doesn't know. Their secrets, it remains a secret. But it's one of those things that kind of gets you thinking and asking, what is the best solution, especially for up-and-coming children? Do we want them aware of the evils of the world? Of course not. Do they need to be aware of this? To an extent. How much do our children need to know about the evils of the world? This is for you guys to decide. I'm just, again, the tour guide, taking you on this journey, this psychological thought process journey of what it looks like to create the perfect living environment for yourself. So consider all these things. Do it by force, do it by choice, do it by coercion or manipulation or complete lies. How much of our lives in existence right now are kind of fabricated? We don't know. There's a lot more that can be said, but let me just transition to for our social causes Friday's discussion. So I don't know if anyone has seen Big Hero 6, the full-length computer animated movie that Disney/Pixar did. I also watched Series 2, Big Hero 6. Great show. Very, very humorous and funny. Lighthearted. Totally recommend it. But let's focus on Big Hero 6. So I recently, well, and honestly, this makes more sense for Business Tech Talks, but whatever. It all kind of overlapped. So I went to a clinic recently with someone just to join them, and they don't have a reception desk. Everything's there with kiosks, and you check yourself in, and you scan your. I'm assuming you scan your insurance card, or I don't know. You type yourself in, you check yourself in, and it kind of reminded me of Big Hero 6. I don't know if you remember B-Max, the big marshmallow white-looking nurse companion character. He's like a robot, and he can check your temperature, and he can give you injections and do all these things. I know it seems like that's pretty like a huge jump from, you know, not having customer service representatives to having robots administer your health care. But the thing is, though, I keep hearing on mainstream media and also local news that there has become a shortage of nurses, of healthcare workers and providers, and that less and less people are inclined to work in the healthcare industry. So I find that interesting that as we are slowly transitioning to the 15-minute cities, the universal, well, everyone's been talking about universal healthcare for a long time, but I'm thinking the cashless society, and then going into an establishment that is doing away with the customer service or the front desk receptions, checking you in and having you check in at a kiosk. I'm just seeing that, oh, and then with the shortages of nurses, it just seems like that's pretty much where we're trending. Like with iRobot, Elon Musk has recently come out with the robot wife. If anyone's seen the movie Artificial Intelligence, if anyone's seen the movie like iRobot, that's honestly where we're trending. No matter how much you want to sit here and deny and say, oh, we'll never be like that, or that's just a movie, or that's just fantasy, can we just be realistic here? Like, please, wake up and study the trends, the signs of the time, where we're heading right now with the advancement of technology, the shortage of nurses, and again, the cashless society. They've got stores where you don't even have people working in the store. You just have everything coming from vending machines. I've seen so many people paying with their phones, and I saw an article a few weeks ago where Amazon / some certain stores are expecting you just to what is it? I don't want to say those words because I don't want to sound so scary or post-apocalyptic paranoid, but where you can get all your information, like they can scan the palm of your hand and you can just scan yourself into certain places, Whole Foods. The bigger cities are starting to do this more now, where only certain people will be able to access certain stores to get certain goods. Of course, as long as you're in line and in tune with everything that society expects from you. So with medical care, it's just going to be a matter of time before everything's going to be like, we don't have enough people to work, we're going to have to rely on more technology. So, yeah. So before we get to that point where it's mandatory that you have to fall into these categories, let us consider now about picking your tribe. And part of the social causes discussion I wanted to bring up was the past riots. I was talking to a dear friend today who was talking about the Watts riots. I'm not familiar with that. I know we heard about the Rodney King ones and more recent times, the 2020 riots and, protests. Let me use the proper word speak here. The protests. One question I had asked my friend, and we had kind of discussed briefly, was it better to segregate? Or is it better to segregate? Or was it better to desegregate? Because my parents came from an era, and she also remembered this, my friend, where they were forcing segregation. they were forcing the black students to get with the white students, and then she says they remember busing in students from the cities into the different schools where she was attending. And she said that many of them formed friendships, but also many of them didn't like their white peers and vice versa. And I've shared this often, and I'll keep sharing it. I grew up on military bases where people were essentially colorblind, and you just hung out with every racial group there because we were just kids and we didn't care about it. We just like, oh, hey, there's another kid. I want to play with that kid. I want to hang out with Filipinos. I want to hang out with the Hispanics. I want to hang out with the whites. I live in the country. There's a lot of white people here. A lot of Mexicans here. And it's whatever. But that's not everyone's story. And then when we come time to religion and understanding certain religious belief systems, once you have people with a larger population with their same religious beliefs, they influence their communities and their local politics, and that changes the environments. So certain places, as much as we're about to enter the Gay Pride and LGBT Alphabet Community Pride Month, which I find very ironic. I have to put this disclaimer out there. Like, nothing but peace and love to you guys. Truly, and with the love of Christ, I have that for you. The thing is that everyone talks about how it's not good to be prideful. So I'm not sure how you can proudly walk around saying pride when people say it's not good to be prideful. They don't like people who are proud. Like with me, I was very proud of my family. I wasn't humble enough. I didn't put the disclaimer in front of every statement that I love Jesus. Jesus is the ruler of my life. I thank him for my family. I am nothing without him. I'm a poor, miserable sinner. And I love my family. I didn't have that disclaimer every time I talked about my family. So people don't like when you're too confident or too proud or too prideful in what you have. But we're supposed to celebrate everyone else for being in that community. Whatever. The point I'm trying to make is, though, you've got certain religious groups who do not agree with that movement. They don't agree with Christianity either. So they influence their area, and they have a lot of peaceful individuals within that group. But then you also have the ones who are more militant. And when you have a large number of people who are in support of that particular religious group, then they create within that area, that vicinity, a tribe. So there's certain pockets in the United States where people will naturally just gravitate towards certain areas. We have the supremacist groups who congregate in certain areas. You've got the other racial groups that congregate in other areas. And then you've got the people who just really don't care. Who are just like, I'm just trying to function. Like, I'm just trying to be happy. I'm just trying to live. I'm just trying to be at peace. And this is what I think now is crucial. Let me wrap everything up with, now is the crucial time where you need to find your village, your commune, your community, your tribe, your home quickly. Figure it out, who you are, where you are, what you want to do, what your values are, what you stand for, who you want in your corner, who you want, who's got your back. Seriously, really consider that and make the moves now. Get in tune with your higher power. You call it the universe, you call it whomever you subscribe to. Now is the time where you figure that out and figure out where you want to live and how you want to live, because pretty soon you're not going to have a choice. It's already been foretold, it's already been predicted, it's already been discussed, it's out there. The information's out there. 15-minute cities, tiny home villages, religious sects and groups, people who are spiritual, people who are Christian, people who are New Age, people who are Buddhist, people who are what have you, people who are like, I'm in it for myself, people who are like, I just want to help take care of everyone, I just want to love on people, I just want a simple life, I want to live out there in the country, I want to live out there in the forest, I want to live in a 15-minute city. Figure it out quickly. So with that, I've been your host, the tour guide. At any point in time you're consuming this content, I can genuinely only hope you're doing well. Thank you, as always, for tuning in, and as always, God's peace.